So from here, we move on to a pivotal part of how the Sabbath gets changed. Constantine, Emperor Constantine, he is the emperor in the 4th century, and he has a pre-Christian religion that he mixes in with Christianity, and this pre-Christian religion is called Mithraism, which is a worship of the sun. Mithraism is a cult religion that worships the sun. And so they have this Latin word that Constantine invokes with changing the Sabbath, and it's called Sol Invictus, which in Latin means the unconquered sun. And so this Sol Invictus is synonymous with the worship of Mithra, or the sun god. So Sol Invictus was the official Roman religion prior to AD 380. There are three major sources of corruptions that aided in liberating the Sabbath from the early church. These include the holidays of the feast of Sunday, Christmas, and Easter. And they successively, all three of them, changed the face of Christianity into what we have today. All 3 days are Christian feast days that celebrate the sun and the pagan deities of the sun. So we look at this pagan sun holiday of Christmas, and so we're quoting from Christianity.com in their article, The Church History Timeline of the First Recorded Celebration of Christmas. So we're talking about the first recorded event of Christmas. And they quote in this article, in an old list of Roman bishops compiled in AD 354, these words appear for AD 336. The 25th of December is called Natus Christus Bethlehem Judea, meaning December 25th, Christ is born in Bethlehem, Judea. This day, December 25th, 336, is the first recorded celebration of Christmas. And if you look at my other teaching that talks about when Jesus was born, we talk about when he was actually born, and it doesn't even come anywhere near as being December 25th. So December 25th was originally worshipped as the birthday of the gods, Mithra, Saturnalia, and Sol Victus. All three gods are the same sun god of Tammuz, which is the same god as Nimrod, who was reincarnated as Tammuz. Different cultures call the sun god by different names, but they all really mean the same thing, Nimrod and Tammuz. And all these gods, these sun gods, they all celebrate his birthday on December 25th. So in a joking manner, we might even call Christmas as Mythmas. In Encyclopedia Britannica article titled Christmas, it says, Christmas was meaning the Mass of Christ. Clement of Alexandria, about 200 AD, mentions several speculations on the date of Christ's birth and condemns them as superstitious. The exact day and year of Christ's birth has never been satisfactorily settled. When the fathers of the church in AD 340 decided upon a date to celebrate the event, they wisely chose the day of the winter solstice, which was firmly fixed in the minds of the people and which was their most important festival. In the article about winter solstice from paganizing faith of Yeshua.freeservers.com, they write, Emperor Aurelian established December 25th as the birthday of the invincible sun in the 3rd century as part of the Roman winter solstice celebrations. Shortly thereafter, in 273, the Christian Church selected this day to represent the birthday of Jesus. And by 336, this Roman solar feast day was Christianized. January 6th celebrated as Epiphany in Christendom and linked it with the visit of the Magi, which was originally an Egyptian date for the winter solstice. So here we understand that Christmas has this pagan origins in a Roman winter solstice celebration, and where it celebrates the birthday of the sun, the invincible sun. And it is an unfortunate thing that this pagan celebration of the birthday of the sun bleeds over into Christianity, where it is people celebrated as the birthday of Christ, but reality it had its origins in celebration of birthdays of the sun, which is pagan. Julius Caesar established December 25th as the winter solstice in 46 BC. So this is in 46 BC when Julius Caesar establishes the winter solstice. So getting back to Constantine with Christmas, quoting from Sir Edward Burnett Tylor in his book Researches into the Development of Mythology, Philosophy, Religion, Art, and Custom, he writes, according to many historians, Christmas was set to December 25th because it was the date of the festival of Sol Invictus. Very interesting to establish this historical truth, according to historians, seeing that Christmas, December 25th, is celebrating the festival of Sol Invictus, and we've already established that Sol Invictus means the unconquered sun. So December 25th is a celebration of the birthday of the sun. According to a Britannica article called Why is Christmas in December? They write here that the church in Rome began formally celebrating Christmas on December 25th in 336 during the reign of the Emperor Constantine. And according to the Wikipedia article entitled in Sol Invictus, it writes, according to many historians, Christmas was set to December 25th because it was the date of the festival of Sol Invictus. So in the 3rd century in the Roman Empire, which at the time had not adopted Christianity at this time, they celebrated the rebirth of the unconquered sun, Sol Invictus, on December 25th. According to the Britannica article entitled Why is Christmas in December? They write, this holiday, which in Latin says Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, not only marked the return of longer days after the winter solstice, but also followed the popular Roman festival called the Saturnalia, during which time people feasted and exchanged gifts. It was also the birthday of the Indo-European deity Mithra, who was a god of light and loyalty, whose cult was at the time growing popular among Roman soldiers. So after the winter solstice, the sun hibernates and then is rebirthed on December 25th, and this is what is celebrated at Dies Natalis Solis Invicti. According to the article from religionfacts.com called Christmas, they write, but as early as 273 AD, Western Christians had decided on December 25th to celebrate the birthday of Jesus. The December date for the holiday probably arose from a desire to provide an alternative to the Roman birthday of the unconquered sun and the Persian birthday of Mithras, both of which were celebrated on or around the winter solstice. A Christian writer explained in 320, "We hold this day holy, not like the pagans because of the birth of the sun, but because of him who made it." So we are starting to see here this trend, according to historians, of how Christians kind of hijacked this pagan holiday of worshiping the sun and making it a day to be celebrated for the birthday of Christ. Going to the Catholic Encyclopedia, Cyril Charles Martindale writes, "The well-known solar feast, however, of Natalis Invicti, celebrated on December 25th, has a strong claim on the responsibility of our December date. For the history of the solar cult, its position in the Roman Empire, and syncretism with Mithraism." So some blatant admissions to early church fathers, early church participants hijacking Natalis Invicti, a pagan celebration of Sol Invictus, to be a hijacked holiday of Christianity, of celebrating Christmas, the birth of Christ. So some compelling evidence to show how the Sabbath is being changed with this idea of that we're going to celebrate and worship the sun. And we have to remember that when we take apart the word sun day, this day is given to worshiping the sun. It's a day given to worship of Mithra. This author, Frank Cumont, in his book Astrology and Religion Among the Greeks and Romans, he writes, Emperor Aurelian begins a new sun cult in 274 AD. He created a new cult of the invincible sun, which is Sol Invictus. In Philip Schaff's book, The History of the Christian Church, using the Justinianus Codex, he writes, "The first Sunday law was enacted by Emperor Constantine in March 321 AD." And he quotes the very popular Constantinian edict that says, "On the venerable day of the sun, let the magistrates and people residing in cities rest, and let all workshops be closed. In the country, however, persons engaged in agriculture may freely and lawfully continue their pursuits, because it often happens that another day is not so suitable for grain sowing or for vine planting, lest by neglecting the proper moment for such operations, the bounty of heaven should be lost." So Constantine in 320 AD, he is changing, he here has the first attempt of changing the Sabbath day to Sunday, telling that instead of the Sabbath day, that the venerable day of the sun should be given honor instead of the Sabbath day. Arthur Wiggle, in his book The Paganism in Our Christianity, writes, "The church made a sacred day of Sunday largely because it was the weekly festival of the sun, for it was a definite Christian policy to take over the pagan festivals endeared to the people by tradition and to give them a Christian significance." In his book, A History of the Christian Councils, H.N. Oxenham writes, "The church decrees Sunday with the sacredness through the Council of Laodicea." So in Canon number 29 at the Council of Laodicea, they establish this church law. "Christians shall not Judaize and be idle on Saturday, but shall work on that day. But the Lord's day they shall especially honor, and as being Christians shall, if possible, do no work on that day. If, however, they are found Judaizing, they shall be shut out from Christ. So what this canon law at the Council of Laodicea decreed is they took away the Sabbath day and they established Sunday law. And they didn't want to socialize with Judaizing people with the Sabbath day. Through this article called Festivals, the Shabbat, it states, while the Pope encouraged Christians to keep Sunday, he recognizes that Jesus and his disciples kept the Sabbath and that many of his followers observed both the Sabbath and Sunday even unto the 4th century. The Sunday memorial of the resurrection, which began as a spontaneous practice, later became a Judaically sanctioned norm. And as the custom grew more widespread, Sunday slowly replaced the Sabbath as the holy day for Christians. So we see that the Pope is encouraging the replacement of the Sabbath day with Sunday and making Sunday a requirement in church law. So now we go on from Christmas and we want to look at how Easter participates in the Sabbath being changed. And Easter is another one of these man-made feasts in the church that is established from its pagan origins. So, quoting from the Eerdmans Bible Dictionary, it says the word Easter comes from the word Ishtar. And so Ishtar is a name of a pagan goddess or a pagan deity that is centered around fertility. So the word Easter comes from Ishtar. Other names would be Estre, Astarte, Eostre, Asherah, or Astarte. And Ishtar is also known as Semiramis, who is known as the Queen of Heaven, who was part of the pagan trinity of Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz. So in this Bible dictionary, it defines Easter as the name which has been attested as early as the 8th century AD. It is believed to have derived from the annual sacrifices of honor of Eostre, the Anglo-Saxon spring goddess. Semiramis became known as Ishtar, which is pronounced, just like it says, Ishtar, referred to Ashtoreth in Scripture, and her moon egg became known as Ishtar's egg. One of her titles was the Queen of Heaven, and two of her fertility symbols were the rabbit and the egg. And this comes from Wikibooks, from their article titled Hebrew Roots, the Neglected Commandments, Idolatry, and Easter. Continuing on with this article, it says the original pagan festival of Easter was a sex orgy that celebrated the return of life via the fertility of Ishtar's conception of Tammuz. Worshippers of the Babylonian religion celebrated the conception of Tammuz on the first Sunday after the full moon that followed the spring equinox. And it's interesting enough that this requirement, or how they came up with Easter, is adopted by the Catholic Church. This is how they come up with the dates for when Easter will be celebrated. And so revisiting that requirements, the Catholic Church set up that Easter will be celebrated on the first Sunday after the full moon that followed the spring equinox. Catholic Straight Answers, quoting Catholic Straight Answers, they say the actual word Easter is derived from the word Eoster, also spelled Estre, the name of the Teutonic goddess of the rising light of day and spring, and the annual sacrifices associated with her. So Easter in its pagan form comes from Eoster and Easter, which translate into the English word Easter. And so the word Easter, we're not talking about the celebration of the resurrection of Jesus. That is just called the Resurrection Sunday. But it's coming from the pagan idea of fertility, of reincarnation, about eggs and rabbits, about the worship of Ishtar and all of its pagan elements. That's what we're talking about that is contributing to the worship of the sun. Bruce Forbes quotes, Bede wrote that month in which English Christians were celebrating the resurrection of Jesus had been called Easter Ramath in Old English, referring to a goddess named Eostre, and even though Christians had begun affirming the Christian meaning of the celebration, they continued to use the name of the goddess to designate the season. And again, we're talking about the pagan worship of the sun, the pagan worship of reincarnation, the pagan worship of fertility, pagan worship with rabbits and eggs, and of Ishtar, these abominations of adding to celebrating the resurrection of Jesus. The concept that Easter makes with the Trinity Feast of Sun worship is that Easter makes a worship connection with the sun. The Trinity of the holidays with the Sunday feast, the Christmas feast, and the Easter feast. These are all holidays, not holy days. These are the holidays of man that he sets up in his pagan worships. They all contribute to taking away the identity of the early church and transforming it into what it is today. All the holidays have one thing in common, the sun. Ishtar, which has produced Easter, was a day that commemorated the resurrection of one of their gods that they called Tammuz, who was believed to be the only begotten son of the moon goddess and sun god. And this comes from Last Trumpets Ministry International. So this pagan religion that Constantine had was centered around worship of the unconquered sun, or Sol Invictus. And so when we look at what Sol means, Sol is another word for the sun, and the sun can be represented by a solar disk. And if we look at a lot of Egyptian gods, they are depicted with this solar disk on top of their head. That means that they are their religion is related to sun worship. So we have some other more commonly recognized religions that have influenced the change of the Sabbath that also have sun worship in their doctrines. Solar discs are often used in old Catholic pictures of Jesus, Mary, and the disciples, and if we look a lot of times at how the Pope is depicted, he has a sun disk hat on his head. So we kind of have to scratch our heads and say, where did that come from? So the solar discs represent the sun as the god of Mithra overshadowing Christianity. Mithraism is sun worship that occurs on Sunday. So if we take apart and separate the word Sunday, we see sun day, worship of the sun. And this is all what we have replaced the Sabbath day with. So we look at this picture here on the screen, we see how Jesus has a halo around him, and the disciples have a halo around them. And they are here at the picture, a commonly known picture of the Last Supper, and we see these halo or sun discs They're also called nimbuses that are around them. These are nothing short of sun discs. So when we see pictures of Jesus and the disciples depicted like this, it is depicted with influences of sun worship. And here we have some more pictures of Jesus with the nimbus around him, and he has a solar disk around him, depicting an influence of sun worship. A halo, well, let's back up here. In his book, The Online Etymology Dictionary, written by Douglas Harper, he writes that a halo is also known as a nimbus. And it is a crown of light rays, circle or discs of light that surround a person in art. It has been used in the iconography of many religions to indicate holy or sacred figures, and has at various periods also been used in images of rulers or heroes. So just because we see, some may say, well, that's just depicting the Holy Spirit around these characters. Well, if that's true, then how come we can see this nimbus around other characters depicting them as rulers or heroes? This idea that the light, the nimbus, the halo is around them because the Holy Spirit's around them, that is a way to lull us into a disbelief that this is nothing short of influencing our ideas of Jesus with Mithra worship. In the Wikipedia article called Sunday, it states that Mithraism was the accepted religion among Constantine that got swept into the Reformed Church that Constantine and Catholics created. In Roman culture, Sunday was the day of the sun god. In paganism, the sun was the source of life, giving warmth and illumination to mankind. It was the center of a popular cult among Romans who would stand at dawn to catch the first rays of sunshine as they prayed. The opportunity to spot in the nature worship of their heathen neighbors a symbolism valid to their own faith was not lost on the Christians. One of the church fathers, St. Jerome, would declare, "If pagans call the Lord's day the day of the sun, we willingly agree. For today the light of the world is raised. Today is revealed the Son of Justice with healing in his rays." Philip Scaff, in his book, The History of the Christian Church, also writes about the Constantine edict that says, "On the venerable day of the sun, let the magistrates and the people residing in the cities rest, and let all workshops be closed. In the country, however, persons engaged in agriculture may freely and lawfully continue their pursuits, because it often happens that another day is not so suitable for grain sowing or vine planting, lest by neglecting the proper moment for such operations the bounty of heaven should be lost." And this is quoting Constantine's Sunday Law Edict.